think there is a reason why they built it then. Maybe they were worried about some sort of invasion or warfare. But it's also important to note that we don't have any evidence that there was any warfare or large scale invasion. But it was something that they were so worried about that they actually built this wall in total 4 times. So you can see in this illustration right here, they actually changed the shape of the watchtower each time they built it. So the first time it was round, like you see in this reconstruction over here. The second time it was rectangular with a closed back. The third time it was rectangular with an open back. And the fourth time it was rectangular with an open back, but it was smaller. So each time they built this 2-mile long wall, it took about 15 to 20,000 logs. So they would have had to go further and further to get that. So we believe they changed the shape of the watchtower because they were trying to cut corners and save resources. Because they were also building houses, public buildings, and using wood for their fuel for their fires. So it's just another reason why they might have declined as well. So we don't believe it necessarily would have looked exactly like this reconstruction over here. We believe it probably looked more like that reconstruction down that pathway over there. You can see it looks like it might have been plastered. So we don't have any actual archaeological evidence that it was plastered here at Cahokia, but other Mississippian sites, such as Aztalan up in Wisconsin, do show evidence that there was plaster. So what they probably did was take saplings or branches and wove them around the logs and then covered it with clay mixed with grass as sort of a plaster. And this would have fireproofed it and insect-proofed it.
Yes. And when was this? What is the era?
Okay, so it would have been 1175 to about 1275. And we believe Cahokia was essentially abandoned by 1350 AD.
1350, and started, what's the earliest evidence you have?
That's a great question. So the first real settlement that we have here would have been about 700 AD, and that would have been more semi-nomadic, and we call that the late woodland period. It wasn't until about 100 years later, about 800 AD, when they were able to permanently settle here with the arrival of maize or corn, and so they were able to have like a surplus of agriculture and crops. And about 800 to 1000 is when they started building the first mounds, but it wasn't until about 1000, 1050 when it really exploded as a city.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, any other questions about that? All right, so the wall also could have been used to separate the classes. So Monk's Mound is on the inside of the wall here, and the twin mounds are the other two very large mounds here at Cahokia. So if you were the chief, related to the chief, maybe a high priest or someone of high status and wealth, you would have lived on the inside of the wall. If you were just a common person, like a flint knapper, that is someone who makes arrowheads, or a potter or someone, you probably would have lived in the neighborhood on the outside. However, you would have been let inside for festivals, markets, rituals, ceremonies, and that sort of thing, and also their sports game of chunky. We also believe it could have functioned like a medieval castle, so if there was perchance an invasion, you could bring the villagers on the inside for that protection. All right, any questions about that? Okay, but I'm going to talk about the 3 different types of mounds found here at Cahokia. So the most common type of mound that you find here is platform mounds, and that is what a monk's mound is. So it's exactly what it sounds like. It has a nice platform, flat top to put a building on there, and those were usually public buildings, so like temples. We do know that there was sweat lodges on some of them, and some of them had places where they would give their bodies for burial. Also, we believe Monk's Mound could have been the chief's residence or the high temple, or probably during the line. Second most common type of mound are so those are
Hey everybody, Bernard here, and it's not just all trains, it is also archaeology. I need to hop on the road because I'm heading off to Marion, but I was 10 minutes away from the largest pre-Cambrian mound north of Mexico City. And having seen recently a lot of Mayan ruins. Here, let me get in the shade. I thought it would be really cool to see this Monk's Mound behind me. I can't stay for the whole tour, unfortunately, because it's an hour. but I really want to come back. So maybe next year I'm going to come back and see this. It is absolutely spectacular. I've got drone footage. It is huge. Yes, that's what she said. It is huge. It is spectacular. And it's absolutely fascinating. I really wish I had the hour to do the tour. It's not all trains. Here's a little known fact about Dr. Minnie. I almost became an archaeologist, and I probably should have. But no, that was what I was really interested in early in life, is archaeology. And it sounds to me like this is a very, very important, very interesting site. Exactly, James. That is what she said. James Regier, have you been here? Because this is absolutely incredible. Here, it's a little blown out. Let me see if I can get better exposure. There we go. This thing, you don't get a sense of it from down here, but this Monk's Mound is really neat. I agree with you, Don. I would love to take the time to see it, but I do have about 6 hours of driving. They'll probably take me 8, and I do want to get into Marion in time to rail fan. So you can't do it all. I want to go to Granite City and do some drone footage. I want to go see the Transportation Museum, to see the big boy. And I guess I'm coming back to St. Louis next RPM, because holy moly, sorry, it's really warm. There's a lot to see and do here. And I really do want to get up to Marion because I want to put the drone up above the diamond. And putting the drone above the diamond will probably be a lot of the footage if I can get it up. If I can get the drone above the diamond, will be a lot of the footage that I use on my Wednesday. So I go live this Wednesday at 7 p.m., the first Wednesday of the month. And the Clydesdales, that's right, James. There's also the Clydesdales. So, this would be a really, really, really good spot for a YouTube meet and greet. Like, there is so much to do. I second the YouTube meet and greet idea. So anyway, I know that the rail camp's down and I couldn't come to you Sunday morning from Miniature Printerland. So I just wanted to come to you Sunday morning live from an amazing site. Actually, I will show you one last thing. Oh, she's talking about the picture. Let me go back and see if I can get a little bit of information on the picture, and then we'll hit the trail. Hang on.
South, you'll get to the confluence of the Ohio River. So this was very much chosen for its access to the waterways, and also probably since it was close to a lake, there was a lot of fish for them to eat, waterfowl, also water for their agriculture. So you can see these patches of fields on the other side of the creek. So it was very much a planned city. They planned to put it here because of its access to the waterways. This is a map of the mound, so you can see that there are the ridgetop mounds in the corner, and Monk's Mound in the center here. So Monk's Mound was an essential part of this creek. Alright, any questions about that before we head on? So I'll just point out before we start walking that from north to south, so this is from north to south, Monk's Mound is 1,000 feet long. Alright, before we head on, I'll also talk about this mound closest to us across the street. So that's Mound 51. And that is one in a string of 4 mounds leading towards the interpretive center. It's important to note that each of these mounds are either partial or full reconstructions because they were destroyed because there was a housing development over there. So I guess post-World War II, they thought it was a great place for a neighborhood. So they just put some houses over there. In the 60s, they realized they needed to do some conservation. So I guess they moved the people out and kind of demolished them, essentially. There is one house over there, so if you happen to walk by, you'll see a modern-looking house. That's why it's owned by the state, and our site manager lives there. So that mound closest to us is interesting because it started life as what we call a borrow pit. Now, one of the questions we get all the time is, where did they get the dirt to build the mounds? And of course, the obvious answer is right from the ground, but they would dig it out of pit areas. So that was one of them, where they just dug it out of the ground out of one spot. But they used that also as a trash pit, so they put a lot of food waste inside of it. They covered it up and put a platform mound on top of it. Legend has it that in the 1930s, when they did an excavation on that for the first time, when they broke ground, they were met with the smell of rotting garbage. I don't know how true that is, but we do know that the food waste in there was very well preserved. It was still in the process of decomposition. So we associate that with feasting. So it would have been one or two really large feasts, and that's why it was covered over so quickly. If they had just left it open for weeks or months, it would have long since been decomposed. But because of that, we associate it with the feasting, and we were able to get a ton of information about their eating habits. They found a lot of white-tailed deer skeletons. They also found different birds. They found swan wings in particular, so we think the wings had some sort of ritual significance. And they also found, I believe, corn, lamb's quarter, gourd, little barley, squash, sunflower, and they also found tobacco seeds in there. So tobacco was probably ritualistic. All right, if you guys are ready, we'll head on to the next side.
They're going to go up the mound. I'm not going to go up the mound as much as I really want to go up the mound. It's 10:15. I'm going to get going. I will show you what they were looking at because this is pretty cool. So here's where we are. Here's, I guess, what it looks like in its heyday. I've taken pictures of all this so I can read it at my leisure. Here are some of the mound distributions. And I have to say, this is a neat site that deserves a lot more time than I'm able to give it right now, which is unfortunate. There's a lot to do and you can't do it all. So thank you for joining me. My plan is to come live to you again from Marion. That's a 6-hour drive. If I go straight, I'm not going to go straight, so let's assume it takes me 7 hours at least. So that's about 5 o'clock. So look for me around 5 o'clock if you want to see live from the Diamond at Marion. And thanks for joining me this morning. Happy trails. I got to hit the road. Bye from a very, very cool pre-Columbian archaeological site. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.